what you would call God. What is your name for God?
In Judaism, there are numerous names for God. There's at least a half a dozen that we use regularly. Each one of them has a different connotation. Each one of them represents a different level of divine presence in the world. There are numerous ways that we refer to God, but before we talk about the names of God, I think it's important to understand what the role of God is in the Jewish religion. And it's really very different than the role of God, to my knowledge, in most other religions. Essentially, you don't have a person, a religion, and a God. That is not correct in Judaism. You have one combined unity, simple unity. Let me ask you, where is God? Somebody once asked the famous Hasidic rabbi, where is God? And you know what his answer was? Wherever you let him be. In other words, God isn't there or here or elsewhere. God is right here. You are God. Now, that can be interpreted as pantheism. But at the same time, the reality of God's presence is an all-inclusive simplicity. A person is made up of many parts. There is the person, there is his mind, and there's the accumulated knowledge that he has managed to provide into his mind over the years of his experience. So you have a child who has little knowledge. A teenager thinks he knows everything. An older person thinks he knows very little. But somewhere along the line, you gain knowledge from experience. And eventually, you have the person, you have the brain of the person, and you have the knowledge of that person. Person chooses to share that knowledge. They may write it in a book. They may give lectures. They may teach it to other people. If the person doesn't choose to share that knowledge, it remains in his mind. When we talk about God, we talk about one entity, which is, he is the knower, he is the knowledge, and he is the one that knows all this knowledge. These are words from Maimonides. And essentially, if you take the role of God as being the role of the person, how we call God is a minor element in the relationship between a person and God. We call God names. We call God Elohim. Elohim meaning the God that is present in nature, the divine force that is present in natural activity. For instance, you take a tree which is bare all winter long. Suddenly the spring comes and the tree is flowering. It's alive. It's beautiful. Where did that come from? Nature. The word Elohim has the same numeric value as the word in Hebrew for nature. So the divine presence within creation is called Elohim. The divine presence that performs miracles beyond nature, meaning the splitting of the sea, the revelation at Mount Sinai, that's called Hashem. We don't say the tetragrammaton, we don't say it. Hashem means the name. It's also the letters Yud Kei Vav Kei, which equal 26. That's the level of godliness beyond creation. Then there's the level of godliness which is within creation that is involved in human struggle. That's Kale. So there are many different names, all of them connotations. But a name is purely something that is necessary for a person to use as a title to something he wishes to label. The word God is a divine force. It really has no meaning. It's our way of saying a power greater than ours, but without defining it. So you're getting into a vast area where the name of God really is not important. Name of God simply relates to how you relate to God, rather than how God relates to us.
So is there a numerical value for
Everything.
For everything?
Every Hebrew letter has a numeric value. Aleph is 1, Beis is 2, Gimel is 3. So the word Elokim and the word Hateva happen to have the same numeric value. And there's a reason for these numeric values being similar. It shows on a relationship between the two. It's not simply, oh, look at that, this one's 120 and this one's 120. It's more than that, it's much deeper. Because the Hebrew language are the building blocks which God used to create the world. And those building blocks have a shape, a dimension, and they also have a numeric value. So numerology or numbers is extremely important in Judaism, especially in Kabbalah.
Very interesting. Actually, another project I'm working on is with a fellow that has felt that he's discovered that in the numerical sequence of 0 to through to 13, the different levels of consciousness and potential for human awareness.
I don't doubt it at all.
And
I don't think we have uncovered even a fraction of what these numbers mean.
Right. And if you think about it, what numbers have done is they've flattened out the concept of infinity, which is with God, right? I mean, the only thing that actually tries to explain infinity in a linear value is numbers.
Is numbers, mathematics. But the fact is, there is no such thing as infinity in a human being or in the finite world. The only place where there is infinity, we use the word infinity to describe a number beyond comprehension, but it really isn't infinite. The example always used is if you were to give Bill Gates a penny. So he'd have $35 billion and 1 penny. And that penny is quantifiable. Whereas true infinity would be where nothing that you give him is quantifiable. Because he has everything, and yet he has nothing. Which is a concept of infinity.
But if we are God, if we are the part of the one, the whole, and if God is infinite, I don't know if you would say that would be the case.
Of course.
Then we must be infinite as well.
Of course.
Okay. Cool.
We are infinite in our spiritual dimension. We are infinite. We each have a soul. Every human being, Jew, non-Jew, every animal, vegetable, and mineral has a soul. That soul element is infinite, indeed. And that soul element is the essence of the item. The essence of the person is his or her soul. The essence of the animal is their soul. The essence of a stone is their soul. And you can't separate the two, but when the human being, who is the vessel for this soul, passes away, the vessel is laid to rest. The soul continues infinitely. There's no end to the soul.
So would you say that the experience of life? Actually, maybe I should ask you. I'll ask you. What then is the purpose for the experience of life?
It's a good question. It's a question that begs an answer, but doesn't really have a simple answer. Every human being is put. Let's not talk about animals, vegetables, and minerals because they don't have free choice. Human beings have free choice. And that gives us a special place in the world order. Every person is created with a specific goal for them to accomplish. The problem is we don't know what that goal is. We have a general goal. We have a general goal whether it is to be a good person, whether it is to be a good Jew, whether it is to be a good Christian, whatever that happens to be. And we have the rules given to us. We have them in the Bible, we have them from the rabbis, we have them from over the thousands of years, over the millennia. We have all these rules given to us. And some choose to follow these and some choose to follow those. And that's the way we arbitrarily figure out our lives. But we do have a mission to accomplish in this world. We have to make the world a better place. Our job is to leave this world better than when we came into it. We're not going to be able to change the whole world. We're not going to be able to change our country, our city. There was once a great rabbi who said, when I was young, I was going to change the world, then I was going to change my country, then my city, then my neighborhood, then my block, and then I realized I have to change myself. So changing yourself, improving yourself, working on yourself is the ultimate goal. And within the realm of things, you can't separate one individual from all the other individuals in the world, because we are all one. We are all God-like. Every human being carries that quality. Every animal carries that quality. Vegetable and mineral. This is one of the things the Bible says, Ki b'tselem Elokim asa et ha'adam, where he created man in the image of God. This is our image of God.
So there are some beliefs that feel that the purpose for our consciousness is to actually enhance God's consciousness. That God created individual consciousness because by, as you mentioned earlier, by having experience, by actually growing knowledge within each individual, God gains knowledge as well through us. Do you subscribe to that?
Absolutely not.
So God cannot be...
It's childish. It's childish for one reason. The word God means all perfect. He is knowledge. He doesn't gain knowledge. He is wisdom. He doesn't gain wisdom. He is life. He doesn't gain life. And as a person, we aspire to grow in our knowledge, to gain knowledge, becoming more God-like. We grow. God doesn't grow. You see, this is the essential flaw in most people's recognition of what God is. They see God as an entity here, the world is an entity here, and the human being is an entity here. Let's forget about all the other levels of creation for a moment, for the purposes of illustration. You have God, you have world, you have person. And the three are separate entities. Oh no, they're not. They're one entity. We perceive them as separate entities. We see them as being independent of each other, but in reality they're not. There's a beautiful book written by Rabbi Shneir Zalman, of the founder of the Chabad movement. It's called the Book of Tanya, written a little over 200 years ago. A small book, usually printed in small format. As one rabbi once said, it's amazing how such a great God can fit into such a small book. But in it, his entire thesis is the unity of all creation. And the unity of creation precludes us adding something to God. Now, it is true that human beings bring into this world certain things that may not have been brought in till now. Whether it's saving lives medically, somebody comes up with a new concept to heal a disease. But if you think that you have added something to God, you're missing the whole point. You haven't added to God. What happened is you have revealed another layer of godly knowledge, which by rights must have been there. Otherwise, God is not all perfect. The essential element of God is the perfection of Him. And therefore you can't add to God. You can't make Him more beautiful, more handsome, more brilliant, more wise. You can't.
So what's the highest achievement for a human being?
Good question. There are commandments between man and God, and there are commandments between man and man. When I say man, I mean woman too. It's just for the sake of the terminology. In the greatest achievement between interpersonal relationships, one human being to another, is helping another human being, in whatever that may be, spiritually, physically, whichever it is. The greatest achievement in the relationship between man and God is rising to a higher level of spirituality, meaning revealing that which is there already in yourself and bringing it to the fore. And one grows step by step spiritually.
Can you describe those steps? What would you describe the steps as attaining that goal as being?
It's not something that you can describe. It's not like you learn how to be an artist by starting with sketching and then growing into pencil and then growing into oil, and that's not what it is. It is a process by which a person learns and grows in knowledge. Knowledge is godly. God is knowledge. When you acquire knowledge and strengthen your knowledge, you are becoming more godly. The more knowledge you have, the more you will be able to know. It grows exponentially. Knowledge feeds on itself. And therefore, the more you learn, the more you understand, the more you will grow spiritually, the higher you will ascend, and the greater accomplishments you'll have. It's not a set goal, because it's there for every human being. Not only for a Jewish person, it's there for every human being. Whether it's a nun who goes to South America to help the peasants farm their fields and she's feeding the hungry, what she's doing is God's work. God feeds the hungry, she's feeding the hungry. So, you can't really say this is the way to do it or this is the way to do it. And Judaism doesn't believe that. Essential to Judaism is the belief in a Messiah, in a certain end purpose to everything. And we believe that all Jews will be Jews, Christians will be Christians, Muslims will be Muslims, and on. All nations will carry on their form of belief. Idolatry, idol worship is a bit of an issue. But essentially, the service of God is not patented to Jews. We don't have a patent on it. We believe that all human beings have a share in the world to come. We believe that all good deeds are rewarded. And we believe that ultimately we will grow into a higher spiritual world, and that higher spiritual world is open for everybody.
So how do you account for the discordance between all the different beliefs?
People. It's not discordance between beliefs. It's people. It's people and it's politics. But you have discordance amongst Christians. You have discordance amongst Jews. You have discordance amongst Muslims. It's not discordance amongst beliefs so much as it's discordance amongst people.
So do you have an idea of what that force is? What the force is that creates that discordance in humanity?
If I knew him, I would be him. Ilu yedativ havitiv. If I would know him, I would be him. For any human being to claim he knows is beyond the scope of knowledge. It's impossible. What we do know is that we were launched 3,300 years ago at Mount Sinai, and we were given an instruction manual. It's called the Bible, the Torah. And that instruction manual tells us how to behave as people, as people between the relationship between man and God, and how to behave with the world, with the environment. Everything is in the Torah. You constantly study, you constantly learn, and you constantly find something new and exciting. We were launched on that day when man and God came together. Mount Sinai is not just God saying, here guys, I took you out of Egypt, here's the instructions, go follow the book. God came down, Moses went up. God represents the spiritual, Moses represents the physical. And the two worlds met. And from then on, the two worlds actually became one. So for the last 3,300 years, our goal is to imbue the physical with the spiritual.
So looking around at the world, how do you see it's working out for humanity as far as the spiritual and the physical coming together?
You have two total opposites. On the one hand, you have technology growing, knowledge growing, whether it's in medicine, whether it's in science, whatever field it is, whether it's in space exploration, mankind is reaching levels that have never been reached before and are able to do things beyond what they were ever able to do. It was a very wise rabbi who was asked by somebody, this was in the 1940s, about the atom bomb. And this little girl asked the rabbi, are you afraid of the atom bomb? Or afraid of splitting the atom? And the rabbi asked her, do you have a knife in your house? She said, yeah. Do you have a sharp knife in your house? She said, yeah. Is a sharp knife dangerous? And she said, well, it depends what you use it for. That's the answer with the atom. So the problems in the world are people, not the knowledge. Cloning is a wonderful gift, but it could be a terrible problem if it falls into the wrong hands or used for the wrong purposes. Judaism encourages scientific exploration, strongly encourages it, but not at the expense of people or the expense of nature.
Can I ask you a personal question? Can you describe your personal relationship with
God?
With God.
A personal relationship with God has to do with living a life as prescribed by God. A personal relationship is not something that you can describe fully in matters of man and God. We don't know God. We don't see him. We don't hear him. We don't smell him. We don't taste him. We don't feel him. So he's not there in the sensory perception of a person. And yet we know that he is there. That knowledge is very different for every person. For some people, it's a simple belief. Yes, I believe he's there. For some people, it's a deeply rooted feeling that comes from an involvement constantly in doing what God tells you to do. You have a brilliant scientist working in a lab, and there's a janitor working in the building as well, who's not learned, who's a fine person. What's the relationship between the scientist and the janitor? Hardly there. They pass each other in the hallway, say good morning, good night. What happens one day when the scientist becomes terribly thirsty? And he asks the janitor to please bring him a glass of cold water. Janitor brings him a glass of cold water. The relationship between the two of them takes on a different dynamic. It may not be an intellectual relationship. It's more emotional. But something that this one needed, this one provided. And therefore there's a connection between the two. God needs us to behave in a certain way. And we do this. If we follow it, there's a connection that's created between man and God. That connection cannot be described as a physical connection.
So would you describe then, how would you describe your activities that make you feel the most connected with God?
Everything I do is connected with God. Whether it's teaching, whether it's praying, whether it's eating, whether it's anything I do is involved with God's work. That's what a spiritual person is supposed to be doing. That's what a rabbi is supposed to be doing. The more knowledge you have, the more connection you have.
Can I bring up love? Where do you see, how would you describe the force of love in the world? God, the force of love in relation to God. I mean, love is an experience for a human. I mean, it's not just relationships with the opposite sex. It's obviously it's a relationship with nature, with God himself. So what is that force?
What does love mean? What does love mean? If you describe love, then you can answer the question, what is it like between man and God, between man and woman, between man and man, man and the universe? I believe that love ultimately means respect. That's what love really is. When two people respect each other, they will have a connection on a deeper level. Sometimes it's teacher and student. A chassid and his rebbe is an excellent example. A follower and his master can be a tremendously powerful love, is a tremendously powerful love. It comes purely from learning, from respecting, from awe in the presence of such an individual. Now, contrast that with the love between a man and a woman. Most people call love physical attraction. That's not love. It's anything but love. Real attraction between a man and a woman will come when there is respect. Love at first sight is a terrible description of two people getting to know each other. What is it exactly that you saw that brought out your feelings of love? Was it her brain? No, you didn't see her brain. Was it her goodness? Well, you don't know if she's good or bad. You just saw her for the first time. So obviously your attraction was purely on a superficial level because of her looks, because of whatever it was. But it wasn't anything beyond that. So that level of love is meaningless. The level that one grows in love means that you learn to respect each other, to look up to each other, behave to each other in a respectful way. And then you become deeply connected.
And what about in a spiritual sense?
Same thing. Exactly the same thing. In a spiritual sense, it is, we live in a world of action. And the world of action is totally different than a spiritual world. You can take eating. Eating is an excellent example. Human being, intellectual as he may be or she may be, if they want to nourish their body and soul, they have to put food in their mouth and chew it. But you say, I'm beyond these things. No? Animals chew food. Animals look at where's a tasty morsel. I'm beyond that. No, you're not. You can take a steak, you can analyze it, you can do all your scientific research on it. You're going to be hungry until you put it in your mouth and you eat it. But when we put that steak in our mouth, we thank God for giving us that steak. We thank God for allowing us to enjoy that while at the same time nurturing our body and soul and getting the energy to be able to do another good deed. So it's all mixed together. Again, the oneness. And the way to grow in love of God is by connecting with God, by understanding and studying about God or His commandments, which is a further level of respect. As you grow in understanding, you grow in knowledge, you grow in action, you then come to respect more deeply the one who you are following, which we call God.
What do you make of disciplines that actually recommend shutting the mind off?
I
Whether it's meditation or...
I don't get into other disciplines. Judaism is very strongly committed to meditation, especially Hasidism, especially Kabbalah. Very strongly devoted to the idea of meditation. Taking a few moments before we pray to meditate on the world, to meditate on the relationship between the world and God. These are daily practices that we don't do often enough because we're so involved in what we're doing and we're busy with everything. But meditation is an essential part of Jewish life.
Would you say that's one of the steps that everyone would probably have to learn and incorporate in their life to actually get a sense of God? No?
Not necessarily. Everybody incorporates God differently. For some people who are more meditative, this would be their path. Some people who are more action-oriented, their path would be such. Some people who are more book-oriented, their path would be thus. So it all depends on the person. There is no one formula. You can bake a lot of cakes a lot of different ways, but you need to put flour in every single one of them. And there's an essential drive towards a connection. How you get there is your own choice and your prerogative.
How would you describe the force of death? And what does the force of death mean to humans? Why is there a limitation to us?
Well, again, you have to describe death.
Is there a
traditional
description?
Of course. The cessation of the physical life of the person. That doesn't mean it's the end. The soul is an infinite entity. It is always there. It moves from one vessel to another, from one person to another. For thousands of years, it is transmigrating from one vessel to another. So in death, physically, we bury the person. We put the person into the ground. We return him or her to their origins. You are dust and returning to dust. And the soul continues to live. The problem is that we think in terms of time and space. Everything in our world is time and space. But time and space are creations. And so when you create time and space, you're limited within that creation. But when you come out of time and space, there is a world without time, without space. So when we say the soul has gone to heaven, has anybody ever seen heaven? No, I don't think so. People have had out-of-body experiences, amazing near-death experiences, and have described light and other things, but nobody describes heaven as a place where you go to using Route 99. Doesn't happen. There is no place and there is no time. So, for instance, if a soul leaves a body, it may inhabit a new body 1,000 years later to us, but instantaneous to the soul because it exists in the world beyond time and space.
So does the soul evolve?
What do you mean evolve?
Does it gain from its experiences?
Yes. It doesn't evolve, but it gains from its experiences. Essentially, as the soul inhabits a body and is able with the body in partnership to perform all the good deeds, the soul can't do a good deed to save itself. As it inhabits a body, does these good deeds, it is elevated to a higher level. The soul is perfect. You can't improve upon the soul. But what you can do is raise it up a notch through doing things that the soul could not do on its own. So the body and soul experience is a tremendously powerful one because each nurtures a need of the other. The body is dead without the soul. The soul is stationary without the body. And therefore, when you marry the two, you now have one perfect vessel to be able to do all kinds of wonderful things.
Are those the saints? Is that the Messiah? I mean, what's the difference between the soul of the Messiah and the soul of everybody else?
You're asking questions that take years to answer. And to give a simple answer would be foolish.
So it's not just an evolution,
The messianic world is a level beyond what we understand this world to be. It's a level where the purpose of the world has been fulfilled. And there is perfection in the world, where animals don't fight, where human beings don't fight. That's amazing. Think about it. Human beings actually get along. Different religions get along. All religions get along. Different people get along. There's no death. There's no stealing. There's no lying, cheating. It's a perfect world. one which we cannot even begin to imagine. It's beyond our scope of understanding.
But not beyond our potential.
Well, absolutely not. But I said before, we are all godlike. It is revealing the potential. The messianic area is the revelation of the absolute potential of the person. That's why we believe the ultimate messianic era is when all souls will come back to inhabit the body. And the body will no longer be a blockage for the soul to hide godliness. The body will enhance godliness, the understanding of godliness.
So my last sort of subject is purpose, intention. The purpose of us as individuals and us as a species. What would
Make
you say?
a better world. That's really what it is. Every human being to take his 4 cubits and make it a better place. And if you can help somebody else, all the better. And if you can help 100 people, all the better.
To what end?
To become more godlike, to reveal your potential.
So obviously, you would say that you've found your purpose in life. Do you ever struggle with your purpose?
No, I'm beyond struggling now. I don't struggle. There's a quote of the Talmud, of a Mishnah, that says every person is obligated to say, the world was created for me. Selfish, isn't it? Yet if you think about it, the world was created for me means I have an obligation to this world. God, when He created the world, and we say He, for lack of a better term, God is neither He nor She. When God created the world, He intended for every single human being, and again, let's leave out the rest of the environment, He intended for every human being to do their share to reveal the godliness within themselves. And ultimately, that is what our purpose is on the earth, to make ourselves more godlike.
So
for some people, that means being a great doctor. For some people, it means being a great scientist. For some people, it means a great rabbi or teacher. That each person has their own path to reveal, and they're all valid paths. But the ultimate purpose is to make the world a better place, to make the world more one, or reveal that oneness with God. Because God and the world are the same thing. We just see them as separate.
And it's not selfish when me becomes the godlike me, as opposed
Absolutely.
to the self-absorbed.
It's not selfish. Not only is it not selfish, it's challenging.
So what would you say the single most powerful message of your belief system is?
Well,
I know I'm asking to compress things in a very small little box. I know.
The belief system in general is to be the best that you can in whatever you're doing. Whether it's spiritually, materially, whatever you're doing, to be the best that you can. To reveal your potential. To reveal the potential of the world. To reveal the godliness within yourself and within the world. That's our potential. That's what we're here for.
Do you believe there is a force acting against that within each person? I mean, you say we have choice.
Oh, of course. Of course. I mean, if God would tell you to eat this, and you would not eat, you would eat that, and lightning would strike you, well, of course. I mean, you would always eat this because you don't want to get struck by lightning. There's always opposites. Everything God created, He created a right and a left, a yin and a yang. There's always a good and an evil force opposing each other. That's the physical world. The Messianic era is when the evil force is gone. There's only good left in the world. Today, every single act is fraught with the challenges that a person has to overcome in order to do it. Help a person, forget it. He doesn't need it. He'll buy drugs with the money. You know, there's so many different things that on a simple level, on a simplistic level, then you get into deeper levels. But there's always two opposing forces. And man has these challenges every single moment of their life. Overcoming the challenge is one of the greatest experiences of all.
So what does that challenge present to people? What is facing that challenge and meeting that challenge? What's the reward?
I mentioned the book of Tanya before. Book of Tanya begins by discussing three types of people: the righteous, the wicked, and the guy in the middle. And he asks a simple question. The guy in the middle, when exactly is he the guy in the middle? If he's doing good, then he's righteous. If he's doing evil, then he's wicked. So when is he the guy in the middle? When he's sleeping? When is he the guy in the middle? His answer is phenomenal. The righteous have reached a level where they have overcome their evil inclination. They have vanquished evil inclination. They are no longer dealing with the daily challenges. Very few people. The evil people are those who are ruled by their evil inclination, who will end off succumbing to the negative rather than the positive every time. The guy in the middle, fascinating guy. He's always doing good. There's one difference. He's conflicted. He still has the emotional challenges of not doing good. So the guy who's righteous and the guy who's in the middle are actually both doing the same. They're both accomplishing the quantity of good deeds the same. Difference is the righteous man or woman has gained total control of his good and evil inclination. And the good inclination wins. All the time. Evil inclination doesn't even bother him anymore. Because he's given up hope. The guy in the middle also does all good. But he's constantly fighting demons. Maybe for a few moments a day while he's praying, he'll overcome the demons. And the demons will leave him alone because he's so into his prayer, into his connection. But once he goes out in the street, demons all over the place. And he has to deal with these demons. So dealing with your demons is really what makes a person righteous, by vanquishing them completely where they don't bother you anymore, or by beating them down 1,000 times a day and always coming out on the good side. But they still bother you. So dealing with demons is not a bad thing. You can be a very righteous person, very spiritual person, very holy person, and at the same time still deal with the demons that the regular people will deal with. The only difference is the regular guy will succumb to the demons. The guy in the middle won't succumb to the demons. He'll overcome it. That's what life is all about.
Do you still wrestle with demons?
Absolutely. And if anybody will tell you he doesn't wrestle with demons, he's a liar. There is no such thing. Absolutely everyone wrestles with demons. The demons are what you create for yourself. If you lead a more holy life, your demons are more refined. If you lead a more corporeal life, your demons become heavier and stronger. So you create your own demons. They're not demons from the outside. They're you. There's no outside. This is, again, we're coming back to the unity of the world. There's no place up there or down there or outside here. There is no place. No time and no space exists outside of the creation of the world. Anything beyond creation is outside of time and space. We are everything. So the demons are ours, the good inclination is ours, and we have a war going on. Everybody has it. Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I follow him? Or do I follow her? What do I do? And you create your own demons. And you resolve your own demons.
So is this a mental struggle?
Well,
Do you know,
mental, emotional, it's everything.
but the solution,
It's all encompassing.
is the solution a mental solution?
Well, what does mental mean necessarily? When you're saying mental, can you overcome it with your mind? Not really. You have to have your body's involvement in this also. The mind, it has to be experiential. It can't be just mentally to deal with the issues. You have to, in other words, if you're in a place where bad things are happening, that's your demon. You brought yourself to that place. Nobody forced you to come here. And you have a demon there. And you say, no, I'm going to overcome that demon. You want to really overcome the demon? Pick yourself up and leave. Physically, get up and leave. If your mind will tell you, think of an alcoholic who's sitting in front of a bottle of whiskey. Take that bottle away, and you're much less likely to succumb to the demon than by sitting in front of the bottle and saying, no, I won't drink from that bottle. You're much more likely to drink from it. Maybe not immediately, maybe in 15 minutes or half an hour. So physically, you have to do something to remove yourself from the source of that demon, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether it's women, whether it's whatever sin you can come up with, that's what it is. You have to physically go there.
In a perfect world, if the world was the way maybe God intended, although I'm sure this is the world God intends, or else
Absolutely,
it
wouldn't be here.
What would the perfect world be like?
I don't know. I don't know. We talk of a perfect world as a messianic era. Can't even begin to fathom what that's going to be like. It'll be a world of perfect harmony. What exactly that means, I don't think anybody knows. Harmony between nature, man, and God. If you can describe that to me, then you know what it is. I can't describe it. I only know what it should be. That harmony, that unity revealed is what the perfect world is. What it is, I don't know. You've never experienced it, you don't know it. It's that simple. All knowledge is gained by experience. We don't have anything in the world. Take a beautiful painting. What is a beautiful painting? It's the harmony of colors, images, shapes, forms that makes it beautiful. Take a beautiful garden. It's the harmony of all the things around the garden. The color white isn't beautiful. The color black isn't beautiful. It's the harmony of colors that makes something beautiful. When things exist in perfect harmony and perfect unity, that is a perfect world. So you can have that in your garden. You can have that if you look at a scene of Vancouver, the ocean, the mountains, the city. It's beautiful harmony. But is it harmony? Of course it isn't. Because there's so much conflict going on under the picture, which you don't see in the picture. So the picture may be beautiful, but under the picture is no good. It's like taking a beautiful Persian rug and looking at the colors the way it is. It's gorgeous. Turn the rug upside down. What do you see? A bunch of nuts that have absolutely no beauty whatsoever. You say, that's impossible. I just saw this beautiful thing. You only saw one dimension. Perfect unity is all dimensions. Don't know what it is. I've never seen it. I believe it's there. I know it's there. But knowing in an intellectual knowledge that it's there, rather than in an experiential knowledge.
Thank you very much. That was excellent.
You're welcome.